Welcome back to MotoAmerica. Here is on beIN Sports is presented by Dunlop and the all-new Sport Max Q3 Plus. Now you don't have to sacrifice mileage to get top performance. Dunlop Q3 Plus and powered by Kawasaki. Let the good times roll. As the grid is set, let's go down to Hannah, who has our pole sitter. Hannah?
That's right. I'm here with Cam Beaubier. First time on pole in a while for you, if at all. I think we were talking about that earlier. We weren't sure. But is today going to be the day, once and for all, that we put Yamaha back in front of those Suzukis?
You know, I hope so. The weekend's been going pretty good so far. I just want to get a good start, slot in, and kind of see what happens. You know, the wind's picked up a little bit. Conditions are a little different than we've been riding this weekend. So, yeah, I'll just get to see what happens. But that's definitely my goal.
All right, best of luck to you. Thanks, Cam.
Cam Beaubier has been on fire ever since they rolled the bike off the truck on Friday.
Yeah, he's been leading. He's led every session. This guy's done an incredible job himself. We'll probably get to see a lot of him in this race. But Cameron's just done exactly what he's needed to do to get the second part of his season started. We got 8 races left in this championship. He's a few points back, but he's done exactly what he needs to do here at Sonoma.
Let's go back down to Hannah, who has Roger Hayden. Hannah, take it away.
This is the first time that Roger hasn't been on pole in quite some time. Still a front row start for you and in front of your teammate nonetheless. What's the plan to stay out in front?
Just get a good start and try to be consistent. This track's pretty easy to rush it, and it's hard to pass, so a good start's important. The Yoshimura Suzuki teams gave me a great bike today. We struggled a little bit yesterday, but we're looking forward to today.
And you saw that piece earlier with Bobby Fong, and the big news there, if you didn't read that graphic, is that tank change and that subframe change allowed Bobby Fong and his team to take 12 pounds off the bike. Beaubier on pole position. Schultz and Roger Hayden make that front row. And then it's Josh Herron, who's had a good go at it this weekend. Jake Lewis and Jason DeSalvo on the WD-40 machine. That's on that BMW.
So stoked for Jason, doing a great job. Bobby Fong heads up row 3. Jake Gagne, Tony Elias, big shocker back there. We'll talk about that. Row 3, and an even bigger shocker for me, Josh Hayes, who's dominated here over the years. Starting in row 4, Kyle Wyman, Sylvain Berrier, who had an incident on his outlap in qualifying. That's why you don't see a time posted for him. And then these guys from yesterday's times, you got Danny Eslick, David Anthony, Hayden Gillum on row 5. Then we got Bryce Prince, Tyler O'Hara, Sebastian Ferreira on row 6. Back to row 7, you got Wyatt Ferris, Jeremy Coffey, Matthew Orange. And then we got Barrett Long, Jason Lauritsen, and Sam Verderico back in row 8.
And on row number 9, we have Max Flinders and Roy Holster. Roy Holster making the field on that Jelly Belly entry machine. Good to see Jelly Belly, a local company here in Northern California. All the execs came out to check out MotoAmerica Superbike racing. So there's a good look at Cameron Beaubier, who is sitting on pole in the Motul Superbike class, and Bazaz Superstock 1000. Leader is going to be Matthew Schultz before we get going. But this rider right here, Roger Hayden, all his focus has got to be on one thing, Jason. All he's got to do is just win race.
He's got to get up in the front. This is a prime opportunity for him and Cameron both to take big chunks of points away from Tony, because you see what they're doing right now. They're going up through turn 1. That's the only time they're going to get to see that particular section that way. When they come down this front straightaway on a normal lap, they get these guys slowed down with a little makeshift chicane. And so the problem is that they got a good look at it. Josh Hayes is coming from the back. He's another guy. It's just, I feel like the intensity level at this racetrack, Greg, is so much higher.
All right, so we're on our warm-up lap, and what are the Kawasaki keys to the race? What do you think, JP?
Well, the first thing that you got to think about when you start looking at the keys to me were Cameron being so dominant. He's been so dominant all weekend long. He's done exactly what he needs to do to get himself into this position. He's got himself a pole position. His title rivals are a little bit further back. Saying that, we look at Tony Elias. He's coming from a long way back, Greg. Coming from row 3. It's not going to be as easy for him to get up there at the beginning as it has at some of these other tracks. We saw him at VIR start from row 3. He was up in second place by the time they got to turn 1. And I think the last thing, when we start looking at the Superstock Championship, Matthew Schultz is ripping. That Yamalou Westby rider and all of his team have done an incredible job getting this guy comfortable. And he's in that stage of the championship right now, Greg, where he's got such a big points lead. He's got 43, I believe, over Bobby. He's got 51, 2 races over Jake Lewis. The thing is that when you get out to that big of a points lead, you start kind of forgetting about the championship, and it kind of allows you to freewheel it a little bit. All the pressure is going to be on Bobby and Jake to try to close that gap, and it doesn't help them when this guy's starting second overall.
Riders coming around to take this last corner before they form up the grid, so that means it's time for our Motul last-minute report with Hannah. Hannah, what is the Motul last-minute report today?
I'm down here looking at the starting grid. You'll notice Aussie Dave of ADR Motorsports is back on the bike after skipping Laguna Seca and putting a different rider on. But you'll also notice his teammate and rider Cameron Peterson is absent from the grid this weekend. He's not feeling real well, and I guess was declared unfit to race. So that is your Motul last-minute report.
All right, thank you so much, Hannah. So a lot of stuff going on here, Jay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. Last night, David and a couple of his mechanics got their bags stolen and money stolen out of their rental car. He's been all day trying to get some money out of the bank and blah, blah, blah. He just got to the track an hour ago, Greg.
Wow.
So David's up against it, and he's riding brilliant this weekend. And let's just hope everybody gets up this hill. This guy here has really impressed me on that WD-40 BMW, is Jason DeSalvo.
So here we go. The grid is cleared, and now it's time to get race 1 from Sonoma Raceway underway for the Motul Superbike class and Bazzaz Superstock 1000. And the clutches are out, and it looks like Cam Beaubier got a good launch, but so did the 95, the Yoshimura Suzuki of Roger Hayden, as he tries to go around the outside.
And it looks like Herron got together with Sculch right off the bat. Herron jumps into third, but Cameron's got the dream start. We're going to have a look back. You see Herron's waving because he's trying to say apologize to Sculch, but Sculch's now back in 6th. He's got his 2 Superstock rivals right in front of him, being Bobby Fong and Jake Lewis in 4th and 5th as they head over the hill for the first time. And we're going down through turn 4, then this really fast turn 5. And I watched over here the other day, and Cameron was so good to watch as they come down into this carousel section. Josh Herron trying to make a big move.
Whoa!
Takes Roger out.
No, so Josh Herron up the inside.
Unbelievable, just unreal. You just, this is the first lap of the race. I know you got to take a shot, but you just can't do that. And he's taking Raj now out with him. So Bobby Fong, Sculch are now battling for 2nd and 3rd.
Heartbreak for the Yoshimura Suzuki team as Josh Herron, boy, we hope he's okay. Roger Hayden looks to be a little bit dazed as well as this race continues to go on. We'll see if corner workers can get over there and clean things up. There's always the possibility of a red flag coming out, but right now it's Cam Beaubier, and that crash has allowed riders to check up, and now there's a big gap back to Bobby Fong.
You know, I get when you're trying to win a race. I understand it. These guys are pushing, and they're doing everything they can. But there comes a point where you got to respect the guys you're riding around. And he just went up underneath Raj there, got all out of shape even before he could even get the bike slowed down. And it's a tough thing, and it's a hard thing as a rider to try to gauge exactly what everybody's doing. But you got to just kind of be a little bit subtle. It looked like he'd come together with Sculch at the start, and then he just made a little bit of a mess of up there. And you can see Raj is just sitting there standing and walking up the hill. I'm glad he's okay. And you can see here, Greg, he's up in no man's land. He doesn't have a clear path to making a pass there, and everybody knows how bumpy it is at the top of that hill, and to come up over there and just take Raj out like that's a real shame.
Plus, on the inside there, Jason, it always seems like it's a little sharper, and you could see the bike just as he crests the hill get so out of shape, and he just couldn't get it slowed down.
Yep, you just can't. It's a very difficult thing, and you know, look, I'm a racer, and I understand the idea behind it, but it's giving these guys a little bit of a clean run. Cameron Beaubier, right off the bat, is 1.8 seconds up front as they come across the line. Then we've got 3 Superstock bikes, Greg, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I'm looking back to see where Hayes is, and I'm looking back to see where Elias is. And on the first lap, Hayes is 6th, Tony Elias is
way back.
9th.
There he is.
And that's the problem with Sonoma that is different than any other track we go to. And he's got Sylvain, looks like Gagne, I'm sorry, no, Sylvain Barrier right in front of him. He's got Jason DeSalvo in front of him. He's got Kyle Wyman. These are all Superbikes right behind him. You got just Superstock bikes everywhere.
So it's Bobby Fong in the Quicksilver Latest Motorsports Kawasaki leading away from number 11, Matthew Sculch, out of South Africa on the Yamalu Westby Racing machine. That's the Yamaha R1. He resides now in Georgia while he's here in the States. Right behind them, it looks like 85 Jake Lewis on the M4 X-Star Suzuki, and the 32 machine is Jake Gagne in the Broaster Chicken. There's a look at 24, Yoshimura Suzuki rider Tony Elias as he takes a tighter line as DeSalvo on that WD-40 BMW went a little bit wide, but Tony Tony had to have a look over, roll up the throttle, because that could have been tight.
It's so hard. No, somebody's off. It looks like maybe Barrier. Somebody went off out into turn 1, and I'm only assuming that just because he was right in front of those guys as they went into there. But it is so difficult to pass. This guy's got a 2.7-second lead right off the bat. He's going to be coming around this next lap, Greg. He's going to see +3 on his board through 3 laps. Probably wondering what's going on, but we got a job by Bobby Fong. This is where he needs to do. He needs to start putting some pressure on Matthew Skultz in that battle. And Jake Gagne just off the back of these guys. Good to see Jake up there battling for a podium position. I said to him, I saw him earlier in the week, I said, man, I'm gonna stop talking about you before the race. I feel like I put the voodoo on you. And he goes, no, Jay, thanks for at least mentioning my name. And here are these two guys going at it as they head up into turn 7.
Jake? No, sorry. Jason.
No, both these guys tipped over. The whole M4, the whole M4 crew did an unbelievable job to get this bike back together, or a bike together for Jake Lewis. And you can see the big number 4 is back there, Greg. Josh Hayes has come through to 6th place, and there's Heron coming into the pits.
So number 2, Josh Heron on that HelmetSounds.com Western Services Mean Yamaha in the pits after causing that incident. Just a miscue and a bad judgment for Josh Heron. It looks like he's up okay as Cam Beaubier sending the thing sideways. Boy, Cam, listen, here's the thing.
He's comfortable.
He is very comfortable right now as we look at Quicksilver Latest Motorsports, Kawasaki's Bobby Fong. Back to that battle. Want to talk about Jake Lewis, 85, right back there on the M4 X-Star Suzuki. Jake mentioned that he was on the GSX-R 1000R model. Actually, it was R model forks that were given to him, and that was part of what the machine that he threw down the road, including destroying the forks. When I talked to the Suzuki representatives who support the M4 X-Star Suzuki team, they were just like, yeah, that was a big crash, no doubt about it. But Lewis puts that behind him, and now he's representing Suzuki out there as he is the front-running Suzuki Jake Lewis with...
Yep, he is right now.
With Tony Elias in 7th spot.
Yep, Tony's back there, but Tony's got a clear run now. He's able to get by Barrier, he was able to get by DeSalvo, and now he's got a clear run to these 4 guys. We'll be able to see if he's able to make any impression on them. And just looking at Jake Lewis is trying really hard to try to do something with Skultz as they head into turn 7. And he's able to get up underneath it. Will Skultz turn it back underneath? It's not quite close enough. So great move by Jake Lewis. And Jake's another one. He's looking up there going, okay, I got to go after Bobby Fong now to try to get some more of these points back.
Jake Lewis right now with a big move to work his way up through the field here, as Lewis had some time in Utah to work with his coach, Ken Hill, in Ridiculous Racing. And when I talked to Lewis about that experience, he said, look, when we come to the races, it's all about lap times, lap times, lap times. I don't ever have an opportunity to work on me as a rider, and those 2 days were an opportunity for him to do so. And I think, hold on, Jason, Hannah is down in the pits right now. I believe she's with Josh Heron. Hannah, what's going on?
That's right, guys. I got Josh down here. Josh, pretty unfortunate start to the race for you. You know, it looks like they're trying to get your bikes fixed and ready to go back out. What happened?
I just went in to go into the carousel on the inside of Raj, and I don't really know if I hit a bump or if I just hit a dirty spot. I don't really know, but something, I wasn't even hardly on the brakes at all. Something just tucked the front and shot out from underneath me, and it sucks really bad that happened. I know if I was Raj, I'd be pissed. You know, I'm really sorry. I wasn't trying to be too anxious and get him on into there or anything. I just hit something or accidentally squeezed a brake hard. I don't know, but you know, I feel really bad and it sucks. You know, I feel bad for the team. We had really good pace this weekend and we could have done good, so it's a bummer, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And you know, hopefully we get this thing back together and at least do some laps.
All right, Josh. Well, we're glad you're okay. Hopefully they can get him back out there in time for the race.
All right, so Josh Heron really trying to sort out what exactly happened as we look at the number 2 Superbike, trying to repair that thing, get him back out, at least get some data. Jason, another look.
He just gets off to the inside of the track here, but the pass isn't complete, and there's a bump in there. But a lot of riders know that there are big bumps in there. They know that, and it's just a matter of, you know, you see Cameron up front, and I know Josh wants to get up there, and I appreciate his apologies, and that's great. It's too bad because it's going to ruin this guy's championship. And the problem is that when you get into a situation like that, you can see Raj maybe has a little bit buggered up leg, but it is racing, and it does happen. And I've been in the same exact boat, and I just feel bad for everybody involved. But Josh has to put his head up a little bit. He's got another day to come back tomorrow. He gets to start from the same grid spot. That Mean Motorsports team will get that bike back together for him, and he'll be able to fight another day tomorrow.
Monster Energy Yamaha Factory Racing's Cameron Beaubier, two-time Superbike champ, runs the #1 plate because he's the reigning Superbike champ, trying to maximize his points tally today as he's trying to collect a heap of points over Tony Elias. Tony's still circulating in 7th spot. Of course, the championship difference between Cam Beaubier and Tony Elias is 80. So it wouldn't be a whole lot of damage done at this point as we go back to race action on the track. And Josh Hayes is starting to chip his way through this field.
He wants to get by Schultz now, and you can see Tony's got on the back of Gagne, and let's see if Josh is able to do anything. He is. He's going to slide up underneath Matthew Schultz, and at the same time, Tony Elias slides up underneath Jake Gagne, and so these guys are just going to continue to march their way forward if they can. And this is a good result for Josh. I'm just looking at his lap time right now. 37.1 is his best. His teammate up front has ran a 35.8, but he has been completely unimpeded by anybody. Cameron's had the track all to himself. Josh has been coming through people every lap, so we'll have a look and see what his lap times are when he can get himself some clear track time. Bobby Fong's still doing a great job, running 2nd overall right now with Jake Lewis running 3rd.
Jake Gagne in the 32 on that Roaster Chicken Honda, supported by American Honda. I talked to him about his bike. We saw him in qualifying earlier. If you watched beIN Sports Connect Superpole qualifying, and that CBR 1000RR was all kinds of loose. And Jake said that's the way he's like to ride it right now. And I asked him about the difference because the last time we saw him in competition, he was on the Superbike, riding on a different brand of tire. And he said there's really no comparison. They went up the High Plains Raceway, the Roaster Chicken team, and were able to test and get some things done and accomplished. And Jake said when he got back on the bike, it took about 2 laps to get used to the Dunlop tires again, and it felt like home. So they continue to work on the 32 genuine Roaster Chicken Honda of Jake Gagne right there. And you know what? A lot of people expected Jake during World Superbike, Jason, to be a couple of seconds off Stefan Bradl, his teammate, and he only ended up being a couple tenths.
He was right there.
It was a very impressive performance.
Yeah, he was definitely right there, and this is good that he's going to get a bunch of laps. Schultz looks over his shoulder, and it's going to allow Tony to zip underneath him into turn 7.
I'm surprised what's going on with Matthew right now. He doesn't look as aggressive as we've seen him. Doesn't look very comfortable on the front end of that motorcycle.
It almost looks like, I don't want to say he's got a problem because they put that bike back together before he went out for qualifying and qualifies at 2nd after he had tipped off. So now I'm wondering if there's another problem or if he's just not feeling it or something's going on. But all the while, it's allowing these guys to move forward a little bit easier.
Tony Elias, your championship points leader. So far, heading into this race, he was on a 5-race win streak. He's won 8 so far this season. Tony has finished only 1st or 2nd with 1 DNF. You remember back he got together with Josh Aaron.
Yeah.
So he hasn't been off the podium. Hasn't even finished 3rd when he's finished races. So this is a bit of a surprise, but this is Sonoma Raceway. I mean, this is exactly what this racetrack can do to a rider.
We've seen so much happen. We're on lap 8 of 22. And we've seen so much happen already. We still got so many races to go, or so many laps to go, rather. And Tony just keeps moving himself forward. They've got a Superstock bike and Bobby Fong up ahead of them. And you can see they got Jake Lewis in front of them also. These Superstock bikes are not hanging around. They're going fast, Greg. 37.0 for Jake Lewis on the last lap. 36.6 or 37.3 and 37 flat for the 2 guys ahead of these Superbikes that were a little bit off of the Superstock bikes last time. Cameron Beaubier out front by 3.8 seconds.
So right now, Cam Beaubier has about an 8-second lead over Tony Elias if you're taking a look at those lap times. He was about a half a second quicker than Cam Beaubier. But if Tony Elias is able to work his way into a podium spot and possibly, with the amount of laps we have left, close down on Cam Beaubier, you're going to see Beaubier pull the pin and show what he really can do on that factory Yamaha R1. Kawasaki ZX-10RR. That was Canadian.
Yeah, thank you.
Of Bobby Fong. 12 pounds lighter.
Yeah, and right now, he looks really solid on the bike, does Bobby. And being able to put in a long run, you can see the Superbike of Cameron Beaubier is not that far up the road. And he's just got to keep his head down because this is going to be a good points paying day for him if he can stay where he's at. And you can see Tony's kind of drawn up on the back of Josh Hayes. Josh will be a lot harder guy to pass than the guys that Tony has gone through already. I talked to you a little bit, Greg, about kind of the way Tony passes people, the things that we've seen him over the course of the year. VIR, Miller comes to mind when he went underneath rods in turn 5 lap after lap. This place here, It's a little bit different. It's a lot harder to just kind of let the brakes off and go to the apex, because most of our primary passing spots here are in slow corners. So the risk level goes up so much when you try to pass people that way. So Tony's going to have to be very methodical in his choice of where he's going to try to go by, Greg. When you go through this turn here, turn 5 into the carousel, it's going to lead you up onto our fastest straightaway. And you can see how tight Josh goes into the carousel. It's been one of those things that Josh has done his whole career.
Yeah, and I mean, Josh won his very first Superbike race here in 2009, and he's had a tremendous amount of success here. So also what you're getting as Tony Elias is the benefit of trying to figure out some lines in some areas where Josh Hayes is riding his Yamaha.
Yeah, and I think when Tony looks back on this weekend, he'll tell you the hardest thing for him all weekend, the worst part about it was just where he qualified, because he's going to have to go through this again tomorrow. It's just so difficult to get through people, but where he's going to try to choose to pass Josh, he's going to have to draw really close up to him in certain areas. As Herron, they got his bike back together. Now what they're going to do here is they're going to try to get this bike back out so that they can at least make sure that the bike is okay, want to make sure that he's okay, so that tomorrow morning when they have warm-up, they have a direction to go on that motorcycle.
Trying to get some laps in for Data, that team. Number 85, Jake Lewis, great job right now in 3rd. As Josh Hayes in 4th and 5th. So this is the battle for 4th and 5th spot. This is not what we see every day. Bobby Fong is in 2nd, Jake Lewis in 3rd. This would be Bobby Fong's best overall result. He's had a couple of 3rd place finishes overall in the Motul Superbike class as he races and competes for points in both that class and the Bazzaz Superstock 1000. So it's Josh Hayes and Tony Elias going after.
So you can see how close Tony is to Josh here. Now you're going to see a couple different lines as they come down in through up over 3. Look at the difference in lines there. Okay, that's the first part. Now Josh is going to really get the bike slowed down. The difference in the carousel is alarming too. Look how much Josh starts to pull away from 4, and as he goes into the carousel, look how much tighter he is than Tony, and look at the amount of distance he's got now. That distance that he's created there has made it very difficult for Tony to do anything with him up in turn 7. Now he's got probably close to, well, what would you say, Greg? 3/4 of a second lead.
Yep.
It's going to be very hard. So the places that Tony's a little bit better, and you can see him close up here on the brakes. But when they go down through the S's again, Josh is, through experience and knowing the track, he's able to just get away enough to where it's really hard for Tony to get anywhere close to him going down into turn 9, which is our other primary braking spot, where these guys are headed down this big steep hill now. Bike gets really light up over the top, but Tony's just not quite close enough. So maybe Tony, you can see how much he closes up on the brakes, and that's kind of the Tony trademark. He's able to brake all the way to the apex, but it's going to take something like coming into turn 11 here, where he's going to have to let the brakes off and go straight to the apex. Here he goes, he's going to try it, Greg.
So here goes Tony Elias up the inside. Hayes leaves the door open, so there goes Tony, but Josh knows how to get a turn, so Tony able to keep it nice and tight, and he'll hold on to that position. Now it's going to be interesting to see when they get to that particular part of the racetrack near the carousel, what Josh Hayes has for him. Is it looked like Hayes didn't really get a great run into turn number 1. So now Tony's thrown Hayes a shot.
And that's the tightest I've seen Tony go up into turn 2. So maybe he saw Josh doing something up at the top of the hill there that he might be able to have work for him. See, he was close enough here as they came out of turn 10. And you can see how his bike is angled compared to where Josh's bike is angled. He's going to go straight down to the apex of the turn, but he's got the bike already stopped and slowed down enough to where he's able to still get to the apex. And that would be the turn that I would suspect that he would be able to do it, because he just wasn't close enough in 7 and 9.
The other thing I noticed in there, Jason, is even though these bikes are equipped with auto blip, which means you can shift down automatically, Tony used a lot of clutch all the way to the apex, just like riding motocross. Here's resetting the front. So that was Cam Beaubier who went by as he gets close to lapping number 2. Josh Herron. Here's, second place Bobby Fong. Rear end starting to slide out. And I don't blame Bobby Fong, because Jake Lewis has done some fast laps and has been able to close the gap. It's been about 2 to 3/10 of a second in the last 3 laps. So Jake Lewis starting to close in on Bobby Fong. The urgency you could see in the right wrist of Fong as he broke that rear end free.
Nope, that's exactly right. He knows that he's running the best laps he can. Just for people at home, 37.4 to a 37.1, but just 2 laps prior to that, Jake ran a 36.9, and he's definitely closing up on the back of Bobby Fong right now. So, and this is where Sonoma's kind of cool, because as a rider, you can really start to see a guy's bike going off in front of you. There's no real big, long straightaways here, so Jake's going to be able to take a lot of information in before he gets to the back of Bobby and really discover and dissect where he's going to be a little bit faster than Bobby through the next courses. We're not even halfway done with the race, or we're just past halfway done with the race. So him seeing Bobby's bike moving around a lot, backing in a ton, that's going to give Jake a lot of confidence as he draws closer.
Quicksilver latest motorsports Kawasaki Bobby Fong coming under attack from M4 X-Star Suzuki's Jake Lewis. We told you Jake Lewis rode off a motorcycle yesterday, and that M4 X-Star Suzuki team is a factory supported but really a private team. And so when that type of budget hits you, sometimes something like an overall podium in Superbike can really help these tensions. Bobby Fong loses the front and he is down.
Such a bummer, and this has kind of been Bobby's year. We've just seen him just make a couple little mistakes, and you know, he was pushing hard. You can see that Jake Lewis is coming, and you can see the airbag has gone off. Man, I feel so bad for Bobby. He's been riding so well this year, but we've just been seeing just little tiny mistakes, and that's coming down through the carousel, and this guy's just ran flawlessly. Up to second place now overall is Jake Lewis, and this is going to be a big points day for him if he can continue where he's at. If he can keep those two Superbikes behind him,
that's the thing right now.
That's what he's got to be able to do.
And be the #1 Suzuki to finish. I can tell you right now, the Team Hammer guys who run this M4 X-Star Suzuki team, the Ulrich family, they're going to be hearts a-pounding down there. Chris and John, let's take a look at this replay as we can see Bobby Fong just in the frame there.
And it's just, you see the front tire go. You see the big black mark. That front tire just goes out from underneath him. And he's just in that point, Greg, where he's starting to cut it back. He's just at that point where he's let the bike run out far enough, and he's just starting to try to get the bike cut back. And he just a little bit too much on that front tire, and it just tucked up underneath him.
That's asking too much of that Dunlop run, especially with the bumps here through the carousel. This might have been a millimeter off of his normal line, maybe too much input into the bars, but down he goes.
And the guy that's going to see that, you know, Jake saw that, but so did Matthew Skultz. And Matthew maybe not having his best day right now, but he's going to be able to salvage a second place in Superstock again and increase his lead in the championship.
And that moves Danny Eslick, who's in 7th spot. Danny Eslick running the number 69 on that TOBC racing machine. He'll move his way into 7th spot and 3rd right now in the Superstock 1000 battle, as he's got 3 Superbikes wedged between him and Hayden Gillum on that man with abandoned plan Cycle World Suzuki. Hayden Gillum back in 11th spot and 4th in Superstock 1000. So Jake Lewis right now, although he may not be feeling it, Jason, I feel that there's a lot of pressure on this young man to keep the Yoshimura Suzuki of Tony Elias behind him, and we're going to be looking at those lap times.
He's still running 2/10 a lap quicker than those guys, though, Greg.
He looks comfy.
They're not closing on him, and if you watch Jake's body language through the S's, he barely even moves on the bike. He's just letting that bike. Here's a good look at David Anthony, who's had a rough day. He's in 12th place right now, and it's really good to see David back on the bike. They put Anthony West on that bike at Laguna. He told me that he's going to have Anthony back on the bike, I believe, Greg, for Pittsburgh and New Jersey. Okay. But David said that they made some strides on the bike when Anthony got on it. They found that he had a bent frame, so when they changed the frame, Anthony went, well, there's one of your big problems. You had a bent frame. David the whole time had figured that maybe he had lost his edge a little bit, and the first practice here the other day, he was running 5th. But like I said, he got robbed last night. This poor guy got robbed. He runs his own team. Really robbed. Him and his mechanics. And this guy runs a great effort. He runs it right out of a semi here. He's taken in Shane Richardson this year to try to help him out. And just a series of unfortunate
and a New Zealander.
events.
Can you imagine? But we expect to hear a little bit more from David Anthony tomorrow in our Kawasaki Rider Team Profile. So make sure you tune in to Be in Sports for that. But we're back here looking at the front of this race. 14 of 22 in the books, and it has gone Cam Beaubier's way. His last time by a 37.9. So Beaubier has got it under control right now. He's not setting the world on fire, and he doesn't have to with a 4.7-second lead.
This is off into turn 1. You can see the bike's getting awful loose into there, but this is all very controlled for Cameron. This is that turn 1 that we talk about. You're going to see him probably get a little bit of a wheelie as he tries to wheelie up over the top of these little S's. You can see, he didn't quite get the front wheel up before he got to that curbing, and you can see it just wiggled him around a little bit. But you can't say enough for this guy here, Jake Lewis, running absolutely superb. Last lap through for Jake Lewis, a 37.1. To put it in perspective, Cameron Beaubier was at 37.9. He's closed the gap down to 4.7 seconds. Tony Elias behind him is at a 37.5. Josh 37.7. This guy's the fastest guy on the track right now on a Super Sport spec GSX-R 1000, and he can still see the leader. He can still see Cameron Beaubier just up the road from him.
And as they flash across start-finish line, Tony Elias took about only 1/10 of a second. So Lewis still with a 3.2-second advantage over Tony Elias. And Tony not checking out from Josh Hayes, but that gap has grown to about 1 second.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's Josh, it'll be interesting to get his comments to see if this bike is any better for him over a long run. I'm sure it's a little bit encouraging that he doesn't have Tony just kind of disappearing up the road from him. You can still see him, but
Jason, when you look at Josh Hayes, though, it just doesn't look like he's got that deal to be able to push it. Now, here's the battle for 7th place. So it's now
Sylvain
Berrier, and Danny Eslick has fallen into the clutches of Sylvain Berrier, and Jason DeSalvo is back in the mix. He's the number 40 on that WD-40 motorcycle is Jason DeSalvo, and I got to talk to Steve Scheibe about that bike, and Jason, obviously, who had a great qualifying effort, is running well here. I asked Steve Scheibe what's the difference. He said he finally got a seat that adjusts. And all this time, even when Steve Rapp was on that bike last year, Steve always said you sit on top of the BMW. He wants to sit in the BMW. Scheibe finally found a bit apart. He was able to put it on the bike, and he got the seat lower for Jason DeSalvo, raised the foot pegs, and DeSalvo feels a lot more comfortable on that BMW S1000 RR.
Yeah, because let's just be honest, Jason's a pretty short guy. You know,
yep.
He's a little vertically challenged as some are, but he makes big bikes work. He's incredibly fast, former factory rider, and doing a good job here, especially promoting that new sponsor, WD-40, they got on board. But it's good to see 2 BMWs in our field, both running close together right now. Sylvain had a problem in qualifying this morning and tipped over. So you can see Kyle Wyman just off the back of them. Kyle looked like he had some struggles on the first session yesterday, but he's able to close the gap down to these 3. And we got a really good battle here for 7th.
Sylvain Berrier, 28, out of France on the Bix Performance machine. And Sylvain Berrier, Jason, I had a chance to talk with him, yesterday after he got off the track, his first run at Sonoma Raceway, and asked him, and he's got experience, as you know, FIM World Endurance. He's raced at tracks all over the world, and he said this track is really impressive.
Yeah, a lot of the guys, Skoltz, Elias, and Berrier, who never really have been to these places, never seen Sonoma before. It's always interesting to get a perspective from people that have raced at world levels and gone to some amazing racetracks. And all of them have said this track is great. They all really enjoy the place. So it's a fantastic layout. It's a fantastic track. We see somebody with their arm up there. It looks like maybe Max Flinders, I believe, Greg.
Yep, could be.
So, and here we go. Back to this battle. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And you can see Josh has not let Tony get away.
No.
And they both ran faster than Jake Lewis that last lap. And so we've got, what, 6 laps to go. And
2.9 seconds now, the gap between Lewis and Tony Elias.
And honestly, this is kind of the battle I've been wanting to see all year. I kind of felt like Tony and Josh, if they start going at each other, Josh is one of those guys, he's not just going to sit there either. If he can get close enough, he's going to take a nibble. And Tony's the exact same way.
Tony Elias, 24, Yoshimura Suzuki, your championship points leader, 40 points ahead of Roger Hayden, who is out of this race. If you're just joining us, Roger Hayden got hit from behind unknowingly from a charging on the first lap Josh Herrin, and they both crashed out of this one. So now Tony Elias trying to reduce the damage between himself and Cambobier, who's 80 points behind. Oh!
And that's its difference. If you come up over the top of that hill and you got any lean angle at all, you get on that small part of the tire and the bike's just going to jump out from underneath you, and that's what you saw.
Tony Elias last time through sector number 1 set his personal fast. But this is what happens with Tony Elias.
Look at the gap and how it closes, Greg.
Right in that section.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We talked about that. That's where Josh is really strong.
He's really good on the entry there. And what it does is it allows him to ease up and get close to Tony going down the straightaway. That Yosh bike is so fast. But if Josh can get closer, just a little bit closer, he'll take a nibble down in turn 7. But see, now he's going to be close enough. You'll see Josh kind of jump this curbing here on the left in a minute. Oh, this is them coming up over the top of the hill. See, he's still leaned over and he's getting on the gas. That front tire loses that contact patch, gets a little bit light while you're leaned over, and that's why you see it buck him out of the seat like it did.
Josh
Here we go, turn 9. Having a go.
Attack. So Hayes goes up underneath on the brakes. That's Tony Elias's move. But Hayes a little wide. Can he get on the gas and close that gap back up? So a good run in there, but too high. So Tony Elias
almost looked like he wasn't able to get it into the first gear. It almost looked like he was trying to still search a gear between those 2 turns. But now Tony knows he's there. And right now, I'm looking out my window. Jake Lewis is getting ready to come into a bunch of traffic. Now that could either really help him or really hurt him. Josh Hayes has to try to close that gap back up. But you see, he got a great drive up over turn 8. He went dive bombing Tony, just like Tony does, down turn 9. But look, he's
oh yeah.
It just kind of looked like he just, I don't know if he had it in the gear he needed to be in or just got in there a little bit fast, Greg. It was hard to decipher.
Saw his foot move like,
Yes.
you know, just trying to get that thing slowed down. Couldn't do it. So now big gap. But here's traffic. Tony Elias is in there. By the way, last time by now, the gap between Tony Elias and Jake Lewis down to 2.3 seconds.
And this will help. This will help Jake a little bit because these guys now, Jake's already got through a part of the traffic, and now he's got to try to get through a little bit more. He's got some up in front of him. You'll start to see that come into. There you go. There's our view. Jake's already pretty much got through a couple of them, but he's got to try, and Jake's gonna actually get these guys in a good spot, maybe coming down into turn 9. Tony's gonna be stuck behind all of them. Oh, you can see Jake. He's stuck behind a few of them right now too. But if he can get through in turn 9, and all the while Josh Hayes is going, wait a minute, this is where he's got to strike himself.
So Cameron Beaubier got through traffic cleanly. 139.1. So that last time by, he was a victim of all that lap traffic. Jake Lewis and Tony Elias will be coming to the line here. So Beaubier now clear of that traffic, at least for the moment, with a couple laps here left to go at Sonoma Raceway. Will come across the line, and he dips right back into the 37s. A 137.9 for Cam Beaubier.
Yep.
He now sits on a 6.5 second advantage.
And here's the traffic that we're talking about. Jake is stuck behind someone going, as they get up into turn 2 here, is he going to be able to do anything? He's not able to.
But Tony got by.
Tony is able to, and this is where the traffic at Sonoma can really, really hurt you.
And it can help if you're Tony Elias, but it's also allowed Tony to get away from Josh Hayes, and which was unfortunately what exactly Jake Lewis needed to happen.
And Jake has been stuck. Let's see who that is. 47. It's Matthew Orange. He's been stuck behind Matthew Orange since turn 11. And you can see what it did. It completely made it to where this whole first sector, just so people know, 23.5 for Jake that time through in the first sector. He lost half a second.
And a 39.3 versus a 37.9. So
correct.
That's it right there. As Tony Elias, now we know he's going to throw Jake Lewis a shot. And there goes Tony sideways, and he goes up the inside on Lewis. A clean pass. Now what's Jake Lewis going to do?
He's probably going to make sure that there's no other super stock bikes behind him and get on the back of Elias and try to follow him to the finish. You know, I know no matter what, there's always going to be a little bit of pride getting yourself on an overall a podium, and that's what Jake's fighting for right now. And hopefully his board will have a good +1, because at least he's got at least +1 right now on Hayes, and he's going to have 3 laps, but he's capable of doing the lap times, Greg.
But that's the thing. I don't know if Jake Lewis knows he's able to do those lap times, because when you see Tony Elias come by you, you might automatically think, oh, this guy's on a rip, he's on a tear. But it was that lap traffic that did it. So we're going to see if Jake Lewis is really going to just put all that aside and just see what kind of times, because he can be competitive with the way Tony Elias has been racing right now. So it's M4X Star Suzuki Jake Lewis, who is sitting on second place overall in this race, leading the Superstock 1000 battle, is now relegated back to third spot, as Tony Elias minimizing the damage after that horrible start to Cam Beaubier, and now only losing 5 points as it sits right now.
The thing that's going to give Jake a lot of confidence right now is he's going to see that Tony's not really jumping away from him. He's not getting away from him by a long stretch. So that's probably going to give him enough confidence throughout the end of the race to just keep moving forward. And you look back here, Matthew Scults, again, running 5th overall right now, 2nd Superstock. This isn't really going to hurt his championship. In fact, even though Lewis is in front of him, this guy will have extended his points lead a little bit because he had a 51-point lead, a 43-point lead, I believe, on Fong coming into it, and he had 51 on Jake. So he's going to still have a 46-point lead at the end of this race. So he's going to extend his point lead by 3 points, even though, you know, maybe he's had a problem.
And of course, that goes in the Bazaz Superstock 1000 class. So it doesn't really matter where they finish on the racetrack in terms of how many Superbikes are between them. Jason DeSalvo.
Oh, now Sylvain Barrier is in that area where he's tight, but this has all changed because Danny Essex got in front of everybody. Kyle Wyman's gotten past both BMWs, and now Barrier and DeSalvo are back there fighting amongst themselves in 9th and 10th place.
And earlier in the season, that was Barrier's ride that Jason DeSalvo's on right now.
And we see this every weekend also. Hayden Gillum, late in the race, moving forward, coming up, catching both these guys in the BMW. He should be right on the back of these guys with maybe 2 or 1 to go. He's going to put himself in a spot where he's going to be on the back of them.
So Hayden Gillum, place placing himself in the top 10. He's the 4th Superstock 1000 rider, but he's got 3 Superbikes between himself and Eslick. As it looks like Roy Holster on the 46, he's got his hand in the air trying to get out of the way of these battles.
Yeah, these guys here, and Kyle Wyman's done a tremendous job. We've seen him come from a long way back. He had to catch those 4 guys, and he's just been putting his head down, putting in the laps. He's got a best lap of a 38.6. He's run consistent 39s right now, but he's going to be on the back of Danny with 2 to go here as they come across the line. He's on the back end of him. And Berrier is now trying to go with these 2 guys. So you kind of got to wonder if something big happened, because when we saw this battle a few laps ago, Berrier was leading with Danny right behind him. Kyle was behind all 3 of them, meaning DeSalvo also.
Yep.
And now Kyle's up to second. Danny's leading the way through. So kind of got to wonder if something happened amongst these guys.
Kyle Wyman, the 33, on the Core Brilliance Lucas Oil KWR entry out of New York, having a good run at it on his privateer Superbike effort. Back up front to Cam Beaubier. He's 6.8 seconds adrift of Tony Elias, Jake Lewis, and Josh Hayes. And he is just having his way right now, doing any lap time he wants because he's got a comfortable margin with 2 laps to go. But make no mistake, back there behind him, Josh Hayes is close enough to Jake Lewis where Jake Lewis might find himself right off of a podium position.
Yeah, you know, Jake's going to try to fight for that the best he can. You got to think he's going to fight for that the best. You can see in the background there, Josh Hayes is closed right up onto the back of Jake Lewis. Tony Elias is a comfortable second. Josh Hayes is going to have 1 lap to go by, but it's been all about this guy all weekend long so far. And I'm sure he's going to look at this race on video tonight and go, man, I wish a few more people could have got between me and Tony, but it's going to be 5 points in the bank for him that he's going to get on Tony as they head into the second half of the season. But he's ran an absolute flawless race.
So the final lap of this race, and we're taking a good long look at Cam Beaubier, his masterful performance here. He got out to the start early on, and then a ruckus behind him. It was absolute pandemonium, but didn't matter to Cam, as Cam's been dominant so far all weekend long. He and his team going to Cali Speedway just a couple of weeks ago to do a little bit of testing on the front end of this motorcycle, and that test has paid off for the reigning Motul Superbike class champion.
Yeah, he's got some different type of forks on the front of his bike that he's found that has really worked well for him, it sounds like, and cuts across all this curbing. He's on a cruise right now as he comes down through the S's, and it's sure is a nice feeling to not be under any threat at Sonoma in these last couple of corners, not having to worry about anybody coming up underneath you. But it's a good way for him to get his second half started with a win, and you know, it's going to be hard for these guys to do anything with him again tomorrow.
A lot of homework to be done for the rest of the field, and Roger Hayden, I'm sure, without the advantage of having this entire race to get data, is going to be behind the ball. Hopefully he's okay, as it looked like he took a shot to his left leg. Here comes Cameron Beaubier to take another win of the season, his 3rd of 2017 for the Monster Energy Yamaha factory rider. And it's going to be Tony Elias and Josh Hayes got around Jake Lewis, who will take the Pizzazz Superstock 1000 win on the day, and just off the overall podium. Here comes your championship leader in Superstock 1000. It's Matthew Skoltz on the Amalou Westby Racing Yamaha.
Yep, he's done a great job to finish 4th there, and then we're going to be looking for this battle for 5th. Just behind, overall for 5th is Skoltz. Now we're looking for this battle for 6th. Danny Eslick and the rest of the guys that were just behind him.
Sylvain Berrier, Eslick on the 69, and look over his shoulder.
Something happened there, Greg, because we don't have Jason DeSalvo in that group either anymore. I see that Jason, just looking to see. Yep, Jason finally just came across the line. So Hayden Gillum ended up jumping up to 9th, Kyle Wyman 8th, and DeSalvo with a 43.3 on the last lap to round out our top 10.
So it is Cam Beaubier, 6.1 seconds will be the recorded margin of victory over Tony Elias and Josh Hayes. Jake Lewis just a little bit too far back to stand on the overall Superbike podium, but still he's going to take the win in the Pizzazz Superstock 1000 class. So we'll take a break here on beIN Sports. When we come back, we're going to talk to Cam Beaubier and find out how it went for him. Don't go anywhere.